Elon Musk enters a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, dressed in a simple, slightly wrinkled shirt and casual slacks, as though he had just stepped out of a Tesla factory after a long day. He chooses a discreet table, his unassuming presence at odds with the glow of crystal chandeliers that illuminate the elegant space. Before he even has a chance to place his order, a waitress approaches with a look of disdain and an arrogant posture. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she snaps, her tone dripping with irony, loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. What happens next leaves everyone in the restaurant stunned and reveals a truth that changes everything. Before continuing this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy captivating tales like this, don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll share another special story. The Lumiere restaurant was a symbol of sophistication in Beverly Hills, located on one of the city's most prestigious avenues. Its wide windows offered a view of streets glowing with luxurious neon signs and the steady crawl of high-end sports cars. Inside, every detail was meticulously curated to impress. Lumiere wasn't just a restaurant, it was a destination for the elite, a place where people came to see and be seen. Ashley, one of Lumiere's most experienced waitresses, moved through the dining room with practiced confidence. Her immaculate bun and perfectly tailored uniform reinforced the image of efficiency and poise she projected. To her, working at Lumiere wasn't just a job, it was a badge of honor, something she proudly mentioned at every opportunity. But beneath her polished exterior lurked an arrogance born of her self-proclaimed exclusivity. Ashley had a knack for judging people at a glance, sorting them into categories based on their clothes, demeanor, and perceived worth. Some people just don't belong here, she often thought. The restaurant's glass door swung open, and a man walked in. He wore plain slacks, a basic white shirt, and a slightly worn jacket. The simplicity of his attire contrasted starkly with the extravagance around him. Yet, there was an understated confidence in his step as he approached the reception desk. Elon Musk wasn't a man who flaunted his wealth with designer suits or flashy jewelry. Despite being one of the most influential figures in the world, an entrepreneur who revolutionized industries, his reserved demeanor often made him appear like any other hardworking individual. Today, he seemed just that, an ordinary customer. Ashley was busy at the reception desk, finalizing a VIP reservation, when she noticed Elon. Her conversation trailed off as her gaze narrowed. She sized him up with a single disdainful glance, her eyes lingering on his scuffed shoes. "Good evening," she said curtly, forcing a smile that vanished almost instantly. "How can I help you?" "I'd like a table, please," Elon replied, his tone polite but unassuming. Ashley raised an eyebrow, her expression incredulous. Her posture shifted as if to say, "Are you serious?" Without masking her skepticism, she crossed her arms. "Are you sure you are in the right place? This is a very exclusive restaurant." Elon remained calm, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, this is the place," he said unfazed. Ashley let out a dry laugh and turned away, muttering something under her breath. She marched to the reception office, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. With exaggerated motions, she typed his name into the reservation system. When no booking appeared, she smirked and returned to Elon, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "As I suspected, you don't have a reservation," she said. "We do have a few tables available, but just so you know, this isn't the kind of place you just stroll into." "That's fine," Elon replied evenly. "I'd still like to dine here." Ashley sighed audibly, grabbing a menu with an irritated motion. "All right, follow me," she said, her voice laced with false sweetness. Without waiting, she began weaving through the dining room with brisk, mechanical steps. Instead of seating Elon in the central area where golden chandeliers highlighted the restaurant's elegance, Ashley led him to a dim, tucked-away corner near the kitchen. The distant clang of dishes and muffled staff chatter provided a stark contrast to the refined ambiance elsewhere. "Here you go," she said, carelessly dropping the menu onto the table. "This table should do. I think you'll feel comfortable here." Elon glanced around the secluded corner, but didn't seem perturbed. Instead, he calmly took the menu, his expression unreadable. "Thank you. I'm sure this will be an interesting experience," he said with a polite nod. Ashley smirked as she walked away, muttering to a colleague nearby. He won't last 5 minutes. Bet he leaves as soon as he sees the prices. But as Elon settled into his seat, his composed demeanor began to draw curious glances from other diners. There was something intriguing about the way he handled himself, as if the chaotic world around him couldn't disturb his equilibrium. Elon Musk glances at the table and then at Ashley, his slight smile unwavering. "Thank you," he replies calmly. Ashley crosses her arms, narrowing her eyes as if trying to decipher whether he's being sarcastic or simply oblivious. "You're welcome," she replies, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases. But since we don't have anything booked tonight, you can have it." Spinning on her heels, she leaves before Elon can respond. When Ashley returns to take his order, her behavior becomes even more cutting. She pulls out her notepad with exaggerated drama and casts a cold glance at Elon. "Have you decided what you'd like?" she asks, her voice laced with boredom. "Or would you prefer a recommendation?" Elon looks at the menu briefly and points to one of the most expensive main courses. "I'd like to try this one." Ashley stifles a laugh, covering her mouth as though to hide a snide comment. "Oh, of course, the filet de Rossini," she says in a condescending tone. "A classic dish. Just to confirm, sir, you do know this costs $350, right?" Elon nods, his calm demeanor unchanged. "Yes, it sounds wonderful." Ashley tilts her head, her lips curling into a malicious smile. "All right then, just to make sure there aren't any misunderstandings later, I suggest you double-check the prices. We wouldn't want anyone to have unpleasant surprises." "I'm certain," Elon says evenly. Ashley lets out an exaggerated sigh as if she's doing him a massive favor and jots down the order. "Very well, as you wish, but I'll warn you, our chef prefers dishes like this to be enjoyed by those who truly appreciate fine dining. I hope it meets your expectations." She spins on her heels again, but before leaving, she stops and turns back. "Oh, and one more thing. The minimum tip expected here is 20%. Keep that in mind while you enjoy." As he waits, Elon seems entirely unaffected by Ashley's attempts to rattle him. He glances around the dining room, admiring the decor and the pianist's performance. When the appetizer arrives, Ashley sets the plate down forcefully, causing it to slide slightly across the table. "Here's your appetizer," she says with a mocking smile. "I hope you enjoy it, or at least know what you're eating." Elon thanks her politely. "Thank you." Ashley leans in slightly, her tone dripping with derision. "You know, a lot of customers who order this dish end up not liking it. It's not exactly mainstream, but I think you'll do just fine. Good luck." Elon looks at her with the same calm expression as always. "It looks excellent. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated by her inability to provoke him, Ashley walks away quickly, muttering something to a coworker. "That guy won't even make it to the main course. He's going to ask for the check as soon as he sees the bill." Meanwhile, Elon continues to eat his appetizer leisurely. Across the room, Ashley watches from a distance, arms crossed, a malicious smile on her face. "I bet he's going to ask for tap water. These types always do," she comments to another staff member, who visibly ignores her. However, an elderly customer at a nearby table has been observing everything. He raises his wine glass and silently toasts in Elon's direction. Elon notices and responds with a slight nod and a smile. Dinner is only just beginning, but Ashley's growing disdain will not go unnoticed for much longer. After taking Elon's order, Ashley decides to teach him a lesson, believing he has no right to be there. Instead of promptly delivering the order to the kitchen, she makes a point of prioritizing patrons she deems more important. She stops to chat with an elegant couple in the center of the dining room, laughs exaggeratedly at a joke told by another guest, and even delivers a cocktail to a table that isn't hers. Meanwhile, time passes and Elon continues to wait patiently. In an attempt to provoke him further, Ashley repeatedly walks past his table, pretending to be busy. Each time he glances in her direction, she averts her eyes and quickens her pace, as if too occupied to attend to him. After a long wait, Elon is approached by one of the patrons who has been observing Ashley's behavior. The elderly man, with neatly combed white hair and dressed in a navy blue suit, approaches with a kind smile. "Good evening, young man. I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I've noticed you've been overlooked, he says, his tone polite yet firm. Elon smiles back, his calm demeanor intact. Good evening. Don't worry, it's all fine. The elderly man chuckles softly and leans in to speak more quietly. You know, sometimes being treated like this is a test of our patience. But I can say with certainty that maintaining your composure is a great sign of strength. Before Elon can reply, Ashley suddenly appears, interrupting the conversation. Sir, can I help you with something? She asks the elderly man, her voice more polished than usual but with a subtly authoritative tone. I wouldn't want you to disturb our customer. The elderly man narrows his eyes at her but maintains his composure. Don't worry, Miss Elon Musk glanced at the table and then at Ashley, his slight smile unwavering. Thank you, he replied calmly. Ashley crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes as if trying to determine whether he was being sarcastic or simply naive. You're welcome, she replied, her voice dripping with impatience. Perhaps you should return to your table and enjoy your dinner, she said to the elderly man nearby, clearly eager to end the interaction. Elon simply observed the exchange, his expression calm, yet analytical. Thank you for coming over, he said to the elderly man with a slight nod. It was a pleasure speaking with you. The man nodded in return and headed back to his table, but not before casting one final look of disapproval at Ashley. She, however, appeared entirely indifferent. When Ashley finally decided to bring Elon's main course, she ensured it took far longer than necessary. First, she stopped in the kitchen to chat with the chefs, leaving the dish to sit under the warming lamp. Then, she returned to the dining room to chat with another table, completely ignoring the ready plate. When she eventually delivered the dish, she placed it on Elon's table with a brusque gesture. Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it, she said, her tone dripping with irony. Oh, and if you don't like it, please let us know. We can always adjust to something more affordable. Elon thanked her with the same calm demeanor as before. It looks excellent. Thank you. Ashley offered a cynical smile and leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for him to hear. Are you sure? It's a very sophisticated dish. It might be difficult for someone who's not used to it. I'm sure, Elon replied serenely. Thank you for your concern. Frustrated by her inability to provoke him, Ashley walked away quickly. At the bar, she commented to a coworker who was visibly uncomfortable. He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable, she said with a laugh, placing an empty glass on the counter. I bet he doesn't even know what he's eating. These types always come here to feel important but end up making fools of themselves. Her coworker forced a polite smile, clearly wishing to avoid confrontation. Maybe he just wants to have dinner, Ashley. Maybe we should treat him like any other customer. Ashley stared at him, incredulous. Like any other customer? Did you see the boots he's wearing? He doesn't belong here, and frankly, if he can't handle it, he shouldn't have walked through the door. Meanwhile, a couple who had been observing the scene whispered to each other. She's awful, the woman said, shaking her head. He's being so polite, but she keeps trying to humiliate him. I agree, the man replied, frowning. It's disgraceful. I think we should say something to the manager. Back at his table, Elon calmly finished his main course, glancing around the room. He noticed the sympathetic looks of other patrons, but didn't appear the least bit bothered. When Ashley returned to clear the plate, her expression remained disdainful. So, how was the dish? Did it meet your expectations? She asked with a fake smile. Elon looked her straight in the eyes and replied, It was excellent, thank you. Please tell the chefs they did an impeccable job. Ashley raised her eyebrows, surprised that she couldn't provoke any complaints or irritation. As she walked away, she muttered loudly enough to be overheard. He might be smiling now, but let's see if he still is when the bill comes. Seated at his table, Elon observed the room with a slight smile on his face, his gaze calm and composed. The atmosphere suggested that the moment to act was drawing closer. Ashley, increasingly frustrated, decided to escalate her provocations. After serving him the coffee he had requested, she deliberately spoke loudly enough for several nearby tables to hear. You know, it's hard to maintain standards when just anyone thinks they can walk in, she said to a colleague, casting a pointed glance in Elon's direction. The colleague, visibly uncomfortable, tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. Maybe we should focus on our guests, Ashley. But Ashley continued louder this time. That's why we have a reservations policy. It helps us avoid situations like this. Nearby patrons began paying attention, some frowning and others whispering among themselves. The couple who had been following the situation looked outraged. The woman placed her hand on her chest and murmured, "This is outrageous. She's trying to humiliate the man in public." The elderly man at another table took a sip of his wine, his expression one of quiet disapproval. "This has gone too far," he muttered. Elon, still seated at his table, surveyed the room without a hint of irritation. His serene demeanor only seemed to unsettle Ashley further, as she now felt the eyes of other patrons on her. A well-dressed woman, seated 2 tables ahead, commented to her companion, "He must be someone important to stay this calm. Anyone else would have left by now." "Or maybe he's just stronger than she realizes," the man replied, casting a curious glance at Elon. Determined to provoke a reaction, Ashley returned to Elon's table, her approach anything but professional. "I hope you're enjoying your experience," she said with an exaggeratedly sarcastic smile. "After all, it's always interesting to have different kinds of people here. It adds a unique touch to the atmosphere." Elon fixed her with a steady gaze and finally responded, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Different? Could you explain what you mean by that?" Ashley let out a short, nervous laugh, clearly trying to maintain her composure. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way. It's just that, well, our clientele typically has a more traditional profile. It's rare to see someone with your style here." The room fell silent. Nearby diners stopped their conversations, clearly tuning in. Ashley seemed pleased with the attention she was receiving, convinced she had the situation under control. Elon Musk stayed silent for a few moments, holding her gaze. His expression was firm, but devoid of anger. Finally, he spoke. "You're right. Perhaps I should handle this differently." Ashley blinked, confused. Before she could respond, the restaurant manager appeared. The manager, a middle-aged man with impeccable posture and an air of authority, scanned the room and immediately sensed the tension. When his eyes landed on Elon, his expression changed drastically. Without hesitation, he hurried over to the table, completely ignoring Ashley. "Mr. Musk," the manager exclaimed, his tone filled with respect. "I wasn't aware you were visiting us today. Please let me know how I can assist you." Ashley's face turned pale, the blood draining from her cheeks as she watched the scene unfold. She glanced between the manager and Elon, utterly bewildered. Elon held the manager's gaze for a moment before turning his attention back to Ashley. "Now," he said, his tone calm but commanding, "let's talk about how we treat people." The silence in the room was deafening. All eyes were fixed on Elon's table, waiting to see what would happen next. The manager, visibly shaken, addressed Elon directly with deference. "Mr. Musk, I deeply apologize for the delay in recognizing you. It's an honor to have you with us this evening. Please let me know how I can make your experience more enjoyable." Ashley, who just moments before believed she had complete control of the situation, froze. Her mind raced, trying to process what was happening. "Mr. Musk? He knows him. What's going on here?" Elon offered the manager a slight smile. "Thank you, but there's no need to worry. I'm fine. I'd just like to have a brief conversation with your staff, if that's not a problem." The manager's expression shifted to one of concern, sensing something was amiss. "Of course, Mr. Musk, whatever you need." He cast a sharp, reproachful glance at Ashley, who stood pale and visibly uncomfortable. Ashley began stammering, desperately trying to regain some semblance of control. I didn't know. I thought..." The manager cut her off, his voice firm and unyielding. "Thought what, Ashley? That this customer, who happens to be one of the owners of this restaurant, didn't deserve the same respect as anyone else?" His tone was low, but it carried a severity that drained the remaining color from her face. Ashley struggled to justify herself. He didn't say who he was. And he looked." She trailed off, realizing that anything she said would only worsen her situation. Elon finally broke the silence, his voice calm yet resonating with authority. "There's no need to state who I am to be treated with dignity. Frankly, it shouldn't matter. Everyone who walks through these doors, regardless of their appearance, should be welcomed with respect." The entire dining room was riveted. Many patrons murmured among themselves, stunned by the revelation that Elon Musk was one of the restaurant's owners. The couple who had been observing the interaction earlier appeared pleased, and the elderly man at the nearby table nodded discreetly in approval. Nearby tables buzzed with hushed conversations. A man seated with his wife whispered, "I knew there was something different about him. He has a presence that's impossible to ignore." The woman nodded. "And look at how he's handling this, with such grace. I hope she's learned something from this." Other diners whispered among themselves, some clearly ashamed for not intervening earlier. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a palpable sense of anticipation. Everyone wanted to see how this would end. The manager turned to Ashley, his expression a mix of frustration and restraint. "Ashley, I expect a detailed explanation of your behavior after your shift. For now, please leave this table and stay away from it. I'll take over from here." Ashley opened her mouth to protest, but the manager's resolute gaze silenced her. With an abrupt motion, she turned and hurried away, avoiding the stares of the patrons. Elon took a deep breath and stood up, glancing around the room. All eyes were fixed on him. In a calm tone imbued with authority, he began to speak. This restaurant was founded with the idea of being a place where everyone could feel welcome, no matter how they dress or where they come from. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case today. But I believe we can learn from this. The diners remained silent, absorbing his words. The manager stood beside Elon, both uneasy and admiring of the way he was handling the situation. Elon turned to the manager and concluded, "I'd like to meet with the entire team after the dining room closes. There are some important things we need to discuss." The manager nodded immediately. "It will be done, Mr. Musk. Once again, I apologize for everything." Elon returned to his seat, and the dining room slowly began to return to normal, though patrons continued whispering about what they had just witnessed. Later, in the empty Lumiere dining room, the staff gathered around Elon Musk. He stood at the center, his presence commanding the space. His gaze met each staff member's, conveying both calm and unwavering resolve. "We all make mistakes," he began. Elon Musk began, his voice steady and resonant. "But what truly matters is what we do after those mistakes. Today, we witnessed a problem that goes far beyond poor service. We saw the impact of snap judgments, hidden biases, and a lack of empathy. But I want you to understand, this is not a condemnation. It's an opportunity." He paused, letting his words settle. His gaze lingered on Ashley, who sat at the back, her eyes filled with tears and shame. "Ashley," he said, his tone gentle but firm, "I know what happened today was a mistake, and mistakes can be corrected as long as there's effort and a willingness to learn. What you choose to do next will define who you are." Elon turned to the rest of the team, his voice softening but still purposeful. "In the world we live in, it's all too easy to judge people based on what we see on the surface. Their clothes, their appearance, what they dream, or where they live. But I want you to consider something. What happens when you choose to treat someone with kindness? When you decide to look beyond appearances and recognize another person's humanity?" He stepped forward, placing his hands in his pockets, his tone becoming more reflective. "We all carry struggles that no one else can see. The person who seems out of place might be having the worst day of their life. The one who doesn't dress as expected might have achieved more than you could imagine. The kindness we choose to extend, especially to those who seem undeserving, might just be the gesture that changes everything." The staff remained silent, absorbing his words. Some appeared visibly moved, while others stared at the floor, clearly reflecting on their own actions. Ashley finally lifted her head, wiping away her tears. Her voice was quiet but laden with remorse. I never thought about it that way before," she admitted. "I was so focused on the restaurant's image, on maintaining standards, that I forgot what really matters. I forgot that every person has value no matter who they are or what they look like. I promise, Mr. Musk, I'll change." Elon nodded, offering her a small, encouraging smile. "That promise is to yourself, Ashley, not to me. True change comes from within. And if you need help along the way, I'll be here." She nodded vigorously, a mix of relief and determination washing over her. "Kindness isn't about grand gestures," Elon continued. "It's about the small choices we make every day. It's about treating everyone we encounter as if they matter, because they do. And that is what defines the character of a place and a person. One of the staff members, clearly moved, stepped forward. "Mr. Musk, your message is clear. We'll work to ensure that Lumiere reflects exactly what you envisioned. Thank you for reminding us of that." Elon simply nodded, offering a serene smile before stepping out of the restaurant. The streets of Beverly Hills sparkled under the city lights. He paused briefly on the sidewalk, gazing at Lumiere's entrance. His soft smile returned as he reflected on what had transpired that evening. What had happened wasn't just about a restaurant or a mistreated customer. It was about creating spaces where people feel seen, heard, and valued. Elon knew that even in the most challenging situations, there was an opportunity to inspire and transform. As he walked down the illuminated streets, Elon thought about what he had said, but it also about the message he hoped others would take from that night. If he could leave everyone who heard the story with one thought, it would be this: in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. True strength lies not in judgment, but in acceptance. And above all, remember, it's in the small choices we make every day that we shape not only the world around us, but also who we are as human beings. If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.